Approximately 40 years ago, I wrote the first book on what was termed as the mind-body connection. And as time went on, I came to understand that there's a confusion in this title, in this terminology of mind-body connection. And the confusion was that it actually still suggests the existence of a mind and a body. And so I've noticed in many of the writings or many of the speakings on this topic by other people in the world, there still tends to be this concept that there is a mind that exists that affects the body, and that we have to resolve this type of thinking, or we have to resolve these effects somehow. And one very popularized one in the past, some American lady would talk about using creative visualization for the sake of resolving the condition that you caused yourself by the way you've been thinking within and about yourself. And the problematic nature of this was it still keeps this dominating imaginary existing concept or theory of there actually being a mind that thinks, and that through that thinking of that mind, it has a detrimental effect on the body. And in a way, it sort of made people feel a little bit like they're doing something wrong. That they're doing something wrong in their thinking and they need to correct that, or that what's coming out of them is actually something wrong and they need to use creative visualizations or imaginary techniques such as that to improve upon themselves. And so it still created a conflict and a division in ourselves, a conflict with ourselves the way we are, and a division between mind and body. So the problem was not resolved, was not clearly exposed. And I even noticed in the book that I wrote at the time that it was misunderstood by most people. Not everybody, but by most people. What I was trying to say was being misunderstood and misrepresented later on through their own work. And so what I'm going to clarify today, or attempt to clarify today, is this mythical confusion, or this mythical concept of a mind, and the confusion that this has created in our species. And it's actually very important, because when we negate the very existence of what we only ever believed, never understood, never discovered for ourselves, no one has ever found a mind, but everybody, or most people, have an automatic tendency to believe in such a thing. And the belief in such a thing is, like most beliefs, come about simply through hearing it often enough over centuries, or hearing it often enough in our family, or hearing that terminology being used, and then ourselves using that terminology without really understanding what exactly are we talking about. And so at a certain point, it became very, very clear to me that thoughts are the product of sensations in the body, and that sensations in the body are actually the natural state of the knowing sense of the living organism that we were born as. So we weren't born thinking, we were born feeling and sensing. And that living organism, born as that healthy living organism, functioning in its perfectly natural way, which was in fact functioning as a sensory and sensitive being, using all the senses to gather information from around us and to feel the presence of that information, or any other information, as various feelings and sensations, very specific feelings and sensations throughout our body. You think of this, of simply one sense organ, the nose, and how do we determine very minor differences between smells and know exactly what they are. We can smell the smell of a banana and we can smell the smell of gas, and so on for thousands of different smells. Yeah. And this is something that happens as purely a bodily intelligence, a bodily function, in which point we know what that is. The description of it is not the knowing I'm talking about, the word gas or the word banana. No, but the immediate sense of whether that scent, what that scent is, how it is effective on us, or how it's harmful to us, or how it's not harmful to us. And so this ability to sense so many things through purely one sense organ alone, yeah, is massive in the body. And then the sensations of the body itself throughout the deeper aspects, internal aspects of the body, not just the sensations of the part of the body we call the nose, but the deeper aspects of the sensations of repulsion and not wanting to breathe that in or wanting to breathe that in are also massively complex and incredibly articulate, incredibly specific. Way more specific than our thinking ever manages to capture in words. We don't have enough words and enough ways to describe the specific intelligences of the body and of each 5 senses and the 6th sense, which I'm going to describe today as all of those 5 senses flowing into the body and accumulating in different parts of the body, stimulating different sensations into the body and accumulating as information and understanding in different parts of the body, and the parts of the body that are actually triggered by the sensations that are coming in through the sense organs, or the sensations and the information that is coming in through the sense organs. The different parts of the body that are triggered are specifically related to that particular information. And you'll notice if you look at a naked person of the opposite sex, so you find yourself attracted, this seeing triggers a sensation in the genitals of the body, as an example. Or smelling gas triggers a sensation in the throat and the lungs. And on it goes. And this is just really basic what I'm saying here today, actually. But for those of us who've gone right into the discovery of the fact that the body has it all, these become highly attuned sensitivities within us. So we're able to understand everything about ourselves and of the world around us at this purely sensory level all over again, as we were born to do. And this means that we're understanding ourselves and the world around us before thinking ever becomes involved. So thinking is not understanding. Thinking is merely the description of what has already been understood by the body. Now, how is the body understanding and knowing? And where is that knowing and that understanding? That knowing is very basic and very primal, but that knowing is incredibly specific. And that knowing is the feeling or the sensation of whatever is felt inside the body in whichever area it is felt. And each area is also specific to what it is that stimulated us from the outside, or what it is that is stimulated on the inside by its own condition, in order to make that condition known to the rest of the body, so the rest of the body can respond to that condition, all part of its own intelligence without any thinking involved. And so before thinking becomes involved, this is all happening, this understanding, this intelligence, this knowing, and this interactive environment of absolutely basic information. I say basic, not meaning it's not advanced, it's the most advanced, but I say basic from the point of view that the thinking process of academia, the thinking process of mentalization has not yet become involved. And it doesn't ever become involved at the level of understanding. Only with the mechanical things in life does thinking become an understanding process. But with the understanding of ourselves as a living organism, of our needs as a living organism, of our condition as a living organism, thinking never becomes involved. All thinking does in respect to that is describe what the body already sensorially understands. And I'll give you a simple example. Is when you feel a sensation of hunger, that felt sensation of hunger is the body's understanding of being hungry and wanting to eat. And it's even so specific that that hunger and the chemistry that's going on as a living intelligence of the body is also desiring or creating the feeling and urge for, not desiring at a mental level, but physically desiring and creating the sensory urge and desire for a specific type of food. It might be a drink, but it might be something it wants to eat as well. Whatever it is well known to the body, is specifically known to the body. And what also is known is what we don't want. Yeah. What we don't want is also known. That's why when we go to pick up a piece of food, we may smell it. Yeah. Or we may just touch it with our tongue, and there's a repulsion or there's a desire for it. This is when we're operating as the animal that we were born as. This is when we're operating at our highest possible level of intelligence in regard to ourselves. Once thinking becomes involved, that intelligence becomes numbed, becomes dulled down to what do I want according to the color of the package around that food, or what do I want according to what my thinking has heard from an advertisement. So this is all outside in influences that are not intelligent at all, but actually the absence of our own intelligence being involved. When our own intelligence is being involved, we are not influenced by anything outside of us to tell us what we need and want. We know damn well at a sensory level what we need and what we want, what we don't want, and that is what keeps us attuned at every moment to the truth and the reality of what it is to be me and how it is to be me and what it is that me requires, me the body. So we have sensations in the body stimulated by external environments, but also stimulated or brought to life or coming to life as our own internal environment and needs being known within us because of how it feels within us at that time. And these are all needs, purely physical needs for food, but also the need for releasing some pain because something is building up inside of us, releasing or knowing and attending to some pain or some distress simply because it's building up inside of us. And this may come from something that happened to us in the past, as opposed to something that is actually presently happening to us or around us in our environment right now, which we're picking up through our sensory apparatus of the living organism that we are. And it's massively intelligent on this level. So this is all that is happening purely on a physical level. Now, what happens with those sensations? Those sensations are firstly felt as a purely physical experience of the lived experience of us in the body. And then this lived experience is going through a process of coming into expression. As it comes into expression, it may become less of a neutral felt sensation and more of a specific feeling of maybe sadness or pleasure or wanting, and a specific urge that will come from that sensation or actually come out of that sensation. As that sensation comes into expression, it comes into a feeling and comes into an urge and comes into a thought. And that thought is the expression of that sensation, forming into that thought, word and action. But at the point of forming into a thought, that thought is the end of that. Or the thought and the action is the end of that. Or the thought and the word is the end of that expression and knowing of that sensation beginning within the body of us. So that thinking is coming into existence from the sensations and the feelings in the body. And that thinking is being thought by the body. There is no mind in between. There is no consciousness in between. There is the knowing sensation of the body itself, knowing itself through the whole process of sensation, through to feeling, through to thinking, which is recognition of what information is there, and then expression of that. Yes, we are conscious of that. The body is conscious of itself. But how and what is that consciousness? It's not some mythical, disconnected state, disconnected from this living organism of us. It's purely sensation. Our ability to feel and know specifically a massive range of specific sensations, all of which mean different things to the body of us. And this is all a knowing sense. And that knowing sense is real and unique to each one of us. And we all have our own knowing sensations going on all the time. And this is how we know we exist and in what condition we exist. And no thinking can grasp that. Thinking is not for grasping that. Thinking is not for understanding ourselves. Thinking is just a final relaying of that information to become either our words and our actions, or to simply remain and dissipate, remain nothing more than a thought that then dissipates. So the thought is the smoke from the flame, and the flame is the life of us. The flame is the lived experience of us. The flame is the ongoing coming into existence of sensation after sensation after sensation. So what is occurring is only known to us once we can drop into this lived experience of ourselves as a living organism. And this is why I understand this more than most people, probably more than anybody I've ever come across, because it's the understanding that has come from going into the depths of myself, not living on the surface through thinking and trying to analyze and work myself out from the outside, which is the thought process, in which is the living process. Although that thinking, that thought process is a final level or final outcome of the whole living experience of the organism of me, it is the final end off-gassing of all that. It's the smoke from the flame, and it's the end of it. It's not the beginning of it. The beginning is in the sensation, and the end of it is the thought that's produced from those sensations. And that thought is not even really needed to be complex language. That thought can simply be a wordless thought, a wordless language of awareness of the experience that is going on. But that awareness is nothing more than a wordless thought. And that awareness exists as a sensation in the body. It is the sensations of the body. The word awareness or consciousness is meaning exactly the same thing as sensation, as physical living sensation. And so that sensation of the body is known to itself because it's a sensation. You can't not know a sensation, and a sensation can't not feel itself. That's how it knows itself. That is the purpose of it, to be felt and known, and to carry in it and with it all the information that any sensation does. And that information is what we express in our thoughts and our words, and that's the end of it. The words are the absolute final expression of that, or the words and the actions. And then it's over, and the next sensation is there. At what point it becomes confusing is we bring in this idea from the outside in, because we don't understand how the body thinks. We don't understand how the body produces its own thought process. We don't understand that. So the first touch of thought when we're a child, before we even learn to think complicated words, is we are aware of our mother. We are aware of our father. We don't know to call that person mother or father, but we know their existence as a sensation throughout the organism that we are, as a product of those people. And we relate to them as somebody very important to us that we are dependent on for our survival. So there is an innate, inherent connection there, a sensory, sensed and known connection that that child relates to that adult through and as. So that adult is not known as a word. That adult is not, the awareness of that adult is not words. It is wordless thinking. And then we learn to think and describe things, and that awareness, or what we're calling awareness, which is really, again, the sensation known to ourselves as an individual organism, including awareness, which is a sensation of our knowing self, of knowing ourselves as we exist and what condition we're in, and of recognizing things outside of us before we even put a word to it. And then thought, which is taught to us, a complexity of language which is taught to us later on in our life, actually tends to complicate things beyond this simple state that we're in. And in those thoughts, we learn to think in ways which is not healthy, which I've talked about many, many times. But essentially, we learn to think about ourselves. And to think about ourselves is a state once removed from that which we think about. And then we create this experience as though there is something separate going on, that we are separate from that which we think about, that we can be separate from that which we think about. And this is the beginnings of the confusion, of the disassociation from ourselves into thoughts about ourselves, which actually becomes the beginnings of this imagining that there is some sort of thinking process separate to that which we are as a living organism. And we call that separate thinking process, or that imagined separate thinking process. We call that a mind. But otherwise, there is no such thing. When we break it down, thought does not exist permanently. But for most people, it does. But once you have recovered from that delusion and recovered your sensory operation of yourself as a known lived experience day by day, then you are grounded in that sense of yourself, and thinking is massively reduced to only when it is required for the expression of those sensations, of that knowing response that the external world triggers in the body. So the body is triggered by externals, and that's a sensation that is triggered, and that sensation then responds to life. And this is the natural function of the human organism that we are. And there is no mind involved, because there is no mind. Nobody has ever discovered a mind. None of you have ever found a mind, because there isn't one to find. There is nothing there inside of you. There is nothing there inside of me other than that everything that I am going on, as I've just been describing, all the various sensations, all the chemistry, the ongoing intelligences of the body, which is massive by comparison to the final thought that squeaks out of us as I'm talking now, like the neighing of a horse. Yeah, it's just a sound. And we can interpret even the neighing of a horse. A horse will neigh when it's upset, and you'll know when it's upset. It will neigh in other ways when it's comfortable and it's content. So yes, there is an expression of the internal sensation of that horse in its own neighing, just like there is an expression of the internal condition and nature of this living body, of myself sitting here when I express. So what I'm expressing today is coming out of what this organism knows for and from itself, which is a very different expression to the one which, when we learn things from outside of ourselves, we memorize those things, and those things, those informations, we memorize those informations and regurgitate those thoughts. Even those thoughts are firstly gathered and accumulated as memory in the body, which means as a sensation in the body, as a contortion or a tension in the body. And if there's too much information going on there, we become so caught, so stressed in that contortion that we can't stop thinking. We're just thinking all the time because the body is naturally off-gassing this thinking. It doesn't want it because too much information, too much thinking is creating more and more pressure, more and more tension, more and more pockets of information that are absolutely useless to the body. And this produces what people now suffer in the world as overthinking, as an uncontrollable, non-stop rubbish coming out of the body, and not only thinking one train of thought, but thinking many trains of thought at once. And you see people in this state where they just can't stop jumping from topic to topic to topic, and they keep expressing themselves, and it's just garbage coming out because there's so much in there that actually they may think they're very clever because they can remember and re-express, regurgitate that garbage, but the body doesn't want it. And this garbage is not of use to the body. So overthinking
The reason there's overthinking and the reason you feel as though you need to control your thinking is because that thinking is contained as such a pressure and such a disturbance and such a distortion in the body of you that it's actually now beginning to do harm in the body and break down certain parts of the body. When people, for example, you notice older people tend to regurgitate the past, or younger people do as well. This misuse of memory, where we're just talking about ourselves, thinking about ourselves. We're not actually talking about ourselves or thinking about ourselves in the real sense of ourselves. We're thinking about the story of ourselves, meaning what do we remember from the events of our past? What do we remember of the story of our life? And we just keep regurgitating that story, regurgitating those thoughts and repeating them over and over again. And this misuse of memory that is to constantly remember who I used to be and who other people in my life who gave me an idea of who I was, or who were part of who I used to be. And I keep thinking about those and talking about those. And this is what happens as people get older. This is very important for older people to not do this, because this is damaging your brains. This is what damages our brain and makes us senile eventually, because we keep expressing the same garbage over and over and regurgitating the same garbage over and over again. And this non-stop flow of thinking is the body's attempt to get it out once and for all, not to then remember it, recall it, and talk about it all over again. And we hear people constantly having conversations with each other, same conversations over and over again. How often have you had the same conversation with your friend? How often have you talked about the same thing? How many times do you regurgitate something that you want to talk about? You've talked about it over and over again. You don't even realize this is harming you, but this is garbage. The body is just trying to get it out. It is not informative information. Clearly, you already know this information. Clearly, you already have this information. It is no longer informative. It's not new. You have it. Why are you still thinking it? Why are you still talking it? Because it's obsolete information. So when you sit to meditate, but really meditate, not this garbage of using mental techniques to try and alter the way you are. This is not meditation. This is just bringing in another layer of this rubbish thinking, adding more nonsense. Is that thinking that you regurgitate when you're meditating as a technique, is that about you? Not at all. It's about some theory, some concept, some philosophy, some nonsense that some lunatic has dreamt up to try and control their thinking. We're not supposed to control this thinking. This thinking is coming out of you when you sit to meditate as an expression of the garbage that the body is throwing out. And the final expression of the garbage that the body is throwing out is this ongoing nonsense thinking that just pours out of you when you sit to meditate. So let it happen. Let it happen. But that thinking has an identification attached to it. We identify with what we think about ourselves. In other words, we identify with the stories and the memories of our own individual life story. And this repeating of this is extremely harmful to the brain and extremely harmful to the body, as it sits in there as a tension, as something that the body has no use for. And actually, let's face it, what use do you have for all the garbage that you keep repeating about the past of your life? What use do you have for that in the here and now? It's harmful to the here and now. It doesn't allow you to experience yourself and know yourself as you actually are today. So you never get out of the entrapment of constantly reinterpreting yourself as you are today according to the story of yourself yesterday. And you just can't get free of that until you sit still. And you have to sit still, physically still. Let that thinking go on. Understand this. There is no mind there doing the thinking. When you realize, when you own up to the fact, when you are honest enough to admit, you've never found a mind. You've never even found a thought. Consider that. You can find thoughts about thoughts, but can you ever actually pin a thought down? You cannot, because thought is only an activity. Because this so-called mind, if we want to use that word, is nothing more than a description, a descriptive word for an activity, not a descriptive word for an actual entity or thing or something that exists and does the thinking. Have a look in there now. I'm talking and you're thinking. Why I say you're thinking is for you to hear what I'm saying. You're repeating the thoughts that are coming as a result of my words. And that's how you are thinking along with me. This is how you are taking in the information that I'm giving you. But those thoughts are only there for the moment that they're in use to express what it is I'm saying. Then you have to keep up. If you stay with those thoughts, keep repeating those thoughts, you won't hear the next thing I say. So to hear the next thing I say, also for most of you, not for all of you, but for most of you, also includes you repeating it in your own words. And this actually distorts what I'm saying, and you're not going to get the meaning of it. But when you come back to just listening, not thinking, not creating words to repeat what I'm saying, but just listening, something else is happening. Now you're back to your natural state. Now you're back to what listening really is, which is a sensory, in the ears, a sensory receptivity to what it is you're listening to. And in that sensory receptivity, there is also the sensations and the feelings that which you are sensing stimulates throughout the body of you. Now you are receiving information. Now you're receiving information in a way that you can actually relate to it as a human being. When you feel its effect on you, when you feel what it stirs in you, you are feeling its relevance or irrelevance to you. If you're not feeling anything, you're feeling its irrelevance to you. If you're feeling something, you're feeling its relevance to you. And I'm going to bring this back to your own thoughts now. These thoughts that just go on and on and on. As these thoughts are purging in your meditation, and they are a purge. So don't use a technique to suppress these, or you'll never ever resolve this artificial identity that you have imagined about yourself from all those memories and all those stories of your life. You will never resolve that by using a meditation technique, because the meditation technique suppresses that, overrides that. You need that flow of thought. You don't need the information in that thought. You need that flow of thought in order to get in touch with what that flow of thought, what feeling that flow of thought also brings with it for you. As it's coming out of the body of you, it is bringing any feeling, any attachment, any identification. The real word for attachment to a thought is actually how you are identified with that story, how you are identified with that story of your father, that story of your mother, that story of that loss, that story of that gain, whatever story makes up the past of your life. What does that bring up as a feeling of you in that? That feeling of you is not actually a feeling of the real you, but the feeling that you have created or that has been stimulated in your identifying with and attaching yourself to an event in your life. So that feeling is significant, but only in the sense that it needs to be felt as it comes up along with those thoughts. If there is no feeling that is attached to that thinking that is going on, then the thinking will have no significance at all, and you won't even notice it. But when it is bothering you, when it is upsetting you, when it is bringing sadness with it, when it is annoying you, all of that, when it is reminding you of things and making you feel good because of what it's reminding you of, that feeling of feeling good in the memory of what is regurgitating through your thinking as you're meditating, that good feeling or that sad feeling, that is the remainder of your identification with the past that no longer exists anywhere other than in your imagination. And that will not go and finish until you process the feeling of it, the effect that it's had on you, at the time that it had an effect on you, and the effect that still exists inside of you as your identification, your attachment, your relationship with that memory, with that thought process, with that imagining. And there it is. When you feel that in your meditation, the feeling of that is the important aspect. The thoughts that are rambling and rabbiting on, they have no significance whatsoever other than the attachment that you still have to those stories. And that is not going to be resolved by thinking those stories. That is going to be resolved by feeling whatever you are feeling in your body as those thoughts are leaving the body of you, much in the same way as you will know the thoughts that I'm speaking, the words that I'm speaking, as you are listening to them, as they are entering you through your sense organs. And I mean entering into you and becoming for a while a part of you. But how do they become a part of you? Because of the way they change the way it feels to be you when you resonate, which is to vibrate with, to resonate with the information that are coming out of my thoughts, through my words, through into your ears, into the internal of your body, and creating a further sensory stimulation inside of you. These thoughts become a part of you for a while. And in that way, you are influenced. But I'm not trying to influence you. I'm just saying this is a fact. In that way, we are influenced. So it's a very powerful thing. Now we have to feel that in order for that influence to come to an end. Firstly, we have to be aware. That is, we have to feel the physical sensation. That is the awareness. It is not something separate to or disassociated from or disconnected from the body, as the spiritualists would have you believe. That's not true. This awareness is something that is on, off, on, off. It is not a permanently existing state or thing. It is not a thing. The word awareness, again, like the word mind, like the word consciousness, describes an activity. When I am aware of a bird, I'm aware of it. For a moment, then I looked over there and I was momentarily aware of the wall that my eyes fell on. Now, I'm not aware of that wall, other than for the purpose of expressing this to you, but I'm not aware of that wall. I'm now only aware of the words I want to use in order to demonstrate awareness is an on-off thing, but sensation in the body is not. For as long as you exist, for as long as you are alive, that sensation is an occurrence of its own volition, of the life of you, and that is the only permanence. And even that only lasts as long as the body of you lasts. And as long as you're alive, you are in a state of sensory knowing, of sensory presence. That's how you know you exist. And that never turns off, only when you die. So now, where is the mind in all of this? Where is the psyche in all of this? Where is this imaginary spirit, soul, and so on that does the thinking? That somehow we have imagined this body of us needs for us to survive, for us to actually be alive. What are these words really meaning? Soul. Soul is something that you feel the presence of in a soulful singer or in the call of a wolf. It is soulful. Some sounds have soul in them. Yeah, a horse, some horses are spirited. So a soulful song, or a spirited horse, or a human being who has heart. When we're talking about they have heart, well, every human being has a heart. Yeah, so there's a physical heart there. We know it's there. But not every human being feels that they have heart and passion in their life anymore. But a person who does have heart, you say, this person has guts, this person has gusto, this person has heart. You're not talking about a thing, are you? This horse has spirit. You're not talking about a thing. The horse is the thing, but the spirit is just the description of a quality. This song is soulful. It's a description of a momentary quality. So we're misusing these words. We've misused these words and given them a completely different meaning. We are a confused and idiotic species. Overly thinking things leads to reinterpretation of the meaning of that thinking. And why do we overthink things? I've just explained, because we are not resolving the issues of our life along the way, and our body is trying to get rid of that. The life of our body. There's no soul in here trying to do that. There's no mind in here that can do that. There's no spirit in this body. It is in its own right a living organism, an intelligent organism. And one day it comes to an end, as we know it in this form. It comes to an end. When I say as we know it in this form, I'm not alluding to it becomes another form. I'm simply saying that my caveat there is, in this form, that's all I know it. I don't know anything beyond this. Neither do you, and neither does anybody else. These are just fabrications of our thinking, and that thinking can fabricate its own experience, and does fabricate its own experience of whatever you imagine. We all know that. You can imagine any experience into a momentary existence, but that existence is not the existence of a thing. It's the existence, again, the existence of a fabricated thought-induced experience based on belief and so forth. Look at what people can do with belief. Yeah, we believe someone hates us or has no regard for us, and it causes us to feel a certain way. And then we find out one day they don't hate us at all and they have great respect for us. Completely changes the way we feel. Both feelings are our own fabrication. We are easily deluded, easily confused creatures. Yeah, mainly because we are not anchored in the reality of the real sense of ourselves in the body, at which point in the sensation of us, we can know the truth of ourselves as and how and that we really truly are, purely as a living, sensing, feeling, thinking, breathing, intelligent organism. And so what is going on in our species when all we are doing is being self-obsessed about ourselves? Why do we think we are the most important species on the planet when we are the most and the only insane species on the planet? Why do we think we're so important? And what does thinking ourselves to be so important do? We think we're so important because of ideologies, because of being told we are, because of the inventions of a God that only cares about us, because we're so special. We're the only species that has a God. We're the only species that has an afterlife. We're the only species that has a soul, depending on the belief system. Therefore, that makes us superior. But none of these things are known, and these become problematic for every other species on the planet, and ultimately problematic for us because we divide ourselves from this species of all other animals, from the planet itself. When really, look at us. Look at all the animals around us in the natural wild world. The animals that have been there on the planet forever. We've come out of those animals, most probably. We're here only because they existed. We came out of this world. We came out of this natural world. We are part of and an expression of this world. Although each and every animal, every creature, every organism, every life form is a unique expression of this world. But all any one of us actually know, I'm not talking about belief, that's false knowing. That's pretending you know when you don't. I'm talking about knowing. What do you know for yourself? And it's got to come from yourself, not from outside of you. It's got to come from yourself. You know you came out of your mother's womb. You know that you formed inside of your mother's womb. You know that your mother is a living organism like all other organisms on the planet. And that out of that organism, which is part of the planet, the organism of you was formed, made of the same stuff as every other creature on the planet. You're not separate to this world. You're not separate to this planet. Your thinking and your ideas about yourself and the story of your life separates you into some sort of delusional self-importance. But when that drops away, speaking from experience, when that drops away, when that story of your life drops away, it drops away because you resolve all of the feelings attached to all these different stories of your life. All these things you place importance on because that was me, that happened to me. Well, get over me. How are we going to get over me in the past and be me, what I am, rather than who I was? There's no who here. There's just what I am. And what I am is speaking. What I am is living, just like you are. There's no who there. There's just what you are. The who is just a fabrication of memory, just a regurgitation of your memory. And that is damaging your brain, disassociating you from yourself as a living organism, therefore disassociating from any sensitivity that this highly sensitive creature is buzzing with all the time. And without that sensitivity, you can't understand yourself. You can't know yourself in the way that you are designed to know yourself, which is not thinking about yourself. When you know yourself, you never think about yourself. There is no need to, other on a practical level. You might look in the mirror and say, I look a bit scruffy today. Yeah. But not thinking about yourself in the sense of for the purpose of trying to understand yourself, because you can't not understand yourself when you're in the sense of yourself. It's an immediate sense of knowing exactly what and who you are, that you exist and what condition you exist in, even as that changes, because it's changing all the time. And as that condition changes, so the sensations of that organism, this organism, change accordingly. The moment I'm hot is the moment that I know I'm hot. And the moment that I'm cold is the moment at which I know I'm cold. I cannot divide that knowing from the fact. There is one unitary movement going on in this very complex, very intelligent creature that we are. And this is the elephant in the room that all religious people, all spiritualists, all psychiatric type people, all mental people have completely overlooked. And they're searching for answers outside of the elephant. And the elephant is right here. There is nothing else that we can know about ourselves apart from the sensation of our existence, the feelings that occur from that sensation, and the thoughts that come from those feelings and express themselves through words and sounds, formed through me just blowing air from my lungs through my throat and holding my mouth in a particular contortion in order to produce specific words. But the words are nothing more than that. And the thoughts are nothing more than the tensions in the body releasing. And as the tensions in the body release, they form the expression of the information that was held, of the trauma that was held, of the memory that was held as a tension in the body of you. And that's why you're overthinking. So to resolve your overthinking, to resolve the harassment of yourself, you need to stop thinking about yourself. How do you do that? You need to come back to the body of you. At first you won't be able to feel it because through overthinking you're completely numb and you don't even know where that overthinking is coming from. Follow it back and you'll find it comes from a disturbance or a sensation felt in your body. Try and stop yourself overthinking and feel how much you want to think. Stop thinking. Stop telling those ridiculous, repetitive, boring stories of your stupid life and live your life now. Yeah, they're boring. You know they're boring. They're boring for everyone. They're boring for you. And they are giving you brain diseases. They're damaging your brain. Your brain is not there for repeating crap over and over again. This is harmful to your brain. Look at what happens. It gets into a groove. It gets into a pattern where you just can't stop thinking about the same crap over and over again. And it's irrelevant. It's not even relevant to your life around you right now. It's not what you need to be thinking about. So you get distracted into thinking about stuff that is no longer relevant, and you can't take care of your life now. You lose the intelligence to take care of your life now. You give yourself all sorts of brain damage through the misuse of memory. The misuse of memory is to repeat stuff that is no longer relevant. If it seems relevant to you, it means you need to go deeper into the felt sense of your emotionalized nostalgia connecting you to those thoughts and those memories, and be with that and feel the distress of that. And you'll discover it is distress. Or you might be thinking about things in your childhood that made you feel happy, and you'll feel into that and you feel, oh, that's so nice. And what are you doing there? You're escaping the emptiness of your old life now, and trying to feel happy for a moment by thinking about something that made you happy when you were a kid. The happiness has to go as well. The happiness is as harmful as the trauma. It's holding you back from being free of all that overthinking, and it's keeping you thinking and thinking and thinking in ways that are damaging and stupefying your brain and making you less and less intelligent day by day. And I know if you're an older person, this is terrifying. You don't want that. You don't want that at all. So you need to let this thinking go. Let it go on and come back to the actual feeling that's there at the time. So just sit still. Feel the pain in your body. That pain is also thought-induced. Feel that pain. That pain is also there because of this accumulation of garbage that the body's been trying to throw out the whole time. But you keep repeating it. You keep dragging it back in. Let it go. And how you let it go is to get in touch with the feeling. I'm saying this again because it's so important. Get in touch with the way in which you associate with those thoughts and feel that until it dissolves. And that is the identity that you have manufactured out of your life story and artificially imposed on the body of you, to the point that you don't know what you are anymore. You think you're that. You think you're that person. You think you're that mother. You think you're that father. You think you're that husband, that wife. But your wife's dead, or your husband's dead, your kids are gone. You're not a mother anymore. You come back to being you. You got to feel the pain of all that loss. Feel the pain of all that change. And when you're listening to me, feel the effect and the annoyances and the outrage that it brings up for you, of your own self-importance, because someone's speaking to you so disrespectfully. I'm not disrespectful to you. I have tremendous regard for your pain. Have tremendous regard for you in pain. That's why I'm doing this. My only intention is to help you free yourself from the confusion and the pain that you cause yourself of constantly identifying with the story of your life and keeping yourself completely disconnected from what you are as a living animal, as a living, intelligent creature. And if you think you're so superior, if you think you're so smart, go out into the forest and watch a healthy animal, a wild animal. Watch how they live. And then look at yourself. You can't even survive without clothes. There's nothing special about us. And we don't need to be special. That's the problem. We just need to be the way we are. And in being the way we are, we feel that and know that in one place only. And that is in the body and the sensations of this body, exactly as it feels to be ourselves each and every day of our life. Do this and you will relieve yourself. You will heal yourself of any mental deterioration, any mental illness, so-called, and any physical breaking down of your body that may be occurring into illness. It's very important now. So if you're interested in doing this for yourself, you can download
Undo app. I've created a very comprehensive course there to take you through this process of recovering the true sense of yourself as what you are and breaking free of all the delusions and memories of who you've got yourself identified with and lost yourself in, and much more than that. So I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me today. If this talk resonated with you or helped you in any way at all, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the talk with your friends so that they can get the benefit as well. Okay, bye for now.